Hello everyone, Dr. Polaris here. If you were to find yourself walking about on the dry savanna and xerophytic woodlands of late Miocene Argentina, there is a good chance that soaring far above you silhouetted against the blue sky would be the dark shape of an enormous eagle-like bird, gliding on thermals and utilising the strong westerly winds that blew over the low but rising Andes mountains. The bird spots something and descends to the ground, landing at the edge of a nearby thorn scrub thicket. You can now get a much better appreciation of the animal's enormous dimensions. Standing on powerful muscular hind limbs, you guess that it must be at least 5 feet tall, while the outstretched wings must measure 20 feet across or so. It walks confidently when on the ground, suggesting that it is well adapted for seeking out potential prey in this manner. The bird stops and stands motionless for a few moments, before suddenly plunging its large hooked beak down into the low-lying scrub. When its head resurfaces, you notice that it has a small armadillo in its jaws, which is quickly swallowed whole in a few gulps. After finishing its meal, the bird turns towards you and stares with its striking yellow eyes. This is Argentavis, one of the largest birds to ever fly, and the most massive member of an already impressive family, the Teratorns. Originating during the late Oligocene in South America, and later colonising North America by the Pliocene, these carnivorous birds are members of the clade Cathartiforms, which contains the modern New World Vultures and condors. A total of 6 genera have been described and named, with the youngest known forms persisting in North America until the end of the Pleistocene about 10,000 years ago, when they died out alongside a variety of megafaunal mammals. All members of the family were large birds, with even the smallest species being comparable to living condors in terms of size. Indeed, due to their close relationship with New World vultures, it had long been assumed that Teratorns would have resembled scaled-up versions of these animals, being devoted scavengers of dead mammoths, giant sloths, and Pleistocene horses. Artwork often depicts them as possessing naked heads, which would be useful for animals that poked their beaks deep into rotting carcasses. However, more recent analyses have shown that Teratorns may have actually been quite different from modern condors, despite having similarly adapted wings. The long beaks and wide gapes of Teratorns are more like those of eagles and other predatory birds than those of vultures. Most likely, Teratorns swallowed their prey whole. Argentavis could technically swallow up to hair-sized animals in a single gulp. Although they undoubtedly engaged in opportunistic scavenging, they seem to have been active predators most of the time. Teratorns had relatively longer and stouter legs than Old World vultures, thus it seems possible that they would stalk their prey on the ground and take off only to fly to another feeding location or their nests. This lifestyle would be somewhat comparable to the modern carrion, a fairly terrestrial falcon that is interestingly native to the exact same region as the Teratorns were, ranging from southern Texas to Tierra del Fuego. Carrions, while having a carrion-heavy diet, spend much of their time walking on the ground in search of small live prey, including lizards, frogs, rodents, and rabbits. Unlike vultures and condors, they possess fully feathered heads, as they are not entirely dedicated to scavenging, being highly opportunistic animals that have been noted to feed almost exclusively on anything that fits in their beaks. Carrions will also push other predatory birds off of carcasses, being dominant in such clashes over the sympatric black and turkey vultures. Perhaps the extinct Teratorns were similar, but on a significantly larger size range. The oldest known member of the family was a genus Taubatornis, from the late Oligocene of Brazil circa 25 million years ago. Represented by a single specimen, consisting only of fragments of the ulna and tibia, this was the smallest Teratorn, probably being comparable to smaller individuals of the living California condor. Taubatornis was also by far the most ancient of these, predating all others by about 19 million years, and strongly suggesting that the family first evolved in South America. The second oldest genus was the famous Argentavis itself, which first appears in the fossil record of where else but Argentina during the late Miocene between 6 and 8 million years ago. Renowned since its discovery in 1980 as the largest flying bird of all time, it was initially theorised to have possessed a wingspan of up to 8 metres or 26 feet, shattering notions regarding the maximum potential size limit of volant birds. However, more recent analyses have downsized these estimates to between 5 and 6.5 metres, which even still is truly enormous, with large individuals of Argentavis possessing wingspans about twice the length of those of the California condor. It is also known that larger flying birds existed, with the description of the pseudo-toothed bird Pelagornis sandersi in 2014 thought to have possessed a wingspan of 7 metres or more. Argentavis does at least retain the title of heaviest volant bird, with a maximum mass of about 72 kilograms or 159 pounds, which is comparable to the average weight of an adult woman in the UK. Like other teratorns, it was long thought that this animal was a vulture-like scavenger that utilised the carcasses of dead ground sloths, glyptodonts and toxodontids, with its wings enabling energy-efficient soaring in order to spot its next meal. As such, the vast majority of Argentavis illustrations online show the bird with a naked head and resembling a massive vulture or condor. However, as noted earlier, the slender beak and wide gape of the genus, in association with its strong legs and large feet, suggests that A. magnificens was probably more of an active predator that hunted smallish prey on the ground. As such, although it would have been more ponderous than other teratorns, Argentavis would have preyed on animals such as cavimorph rodents, armadillos and small notoungulates, which were swallowed whole. While not a habitual scavenger, it would have been certainly capable of bullying smaller forest rachids and sporacodonts such as Thylacosmilus off of their kills. In order to take off from the ground, this animal would have needed to find sloping terrain in order to catch the wind, much like modern albatrosses do when they lack space to do a running start. Late Miocene Argentina was both warmer and drier than it is today, while the Andes Mountains were still in the process of rising, which would have further aided the bird in staying aloft atop thermal updrafts. Argentavis died out by about 6.8 million years ago, at a time in which South America was experiencing something of a megafaunal decline, which was almost certainly caused by climatic changes. Being such a large animal, Argentavis would have been particularly vulnerable to such alterations, with its extinction being the end of the South American teratorns. Meanwhile, during the Pliocene, teratorns arrived in North America, possibly before the formation of the Isthmus of Panama. The oldest known member of the group known from the United States is the relatively poorly understood genus Iolornis, native to the southwestern part of the country, with the type specimen having been recovered from Pleistocene-age deposits in Nevada. This was the second largest teratorn, possessing a wingspan of approximately 5 metres and weighing at least 20 kilograms. As such, it was probably the largest flying bird to ever live in North America. 4 other partial specimens that date back to the early Pliocene circa 5.3 million years ago have also been assigned to this genus. By the Pleistocene, teratorns had diversified in the region, producing several different genera and species. The genus Oscaravis was native to Cuba at this time and was one of the smallest and most gracile members of the group, with it being suggested that it would have been a fairly active predator of lizards, snakes and smaller birds. Meanwhile, on the North American mainland, the genus Teratornis was by far the most successful form, persisting from the early Pleistocene to the Holocene boundary roughly 10,000 years ago. The most common species was T. merriami, which is known from almost 100 well-preserved specimens recovered from the Brea tar pits, where the birds became trapped as they attempted to scavenge from dying megafaunal mammals. With a wingspan of up to 3.8 metres or 12 feet, and weighing about 15 kilograms or 33 pounds, it was roughly a third larger than the living California condor. Their legs were more similar to those of the Andean condor, but stouter, and the feet could hold prey in place, but could not exert a very forceful grip like that of eagles or hawks. It was also well adapted for walking on the ground, with its legs being proportionally longer than those of New World vultures. Its wing loading was not much larger than a California condor's, and T. merriami could have been able to take off by simply jumping and flapping its wings under most circumstances. Indeed, it seems to have been better adapted for utilising a short run into the wind from an elevated location, suggesting that the species may have utilised cliffs and other high places in order to rest and take off in search of food. Like other teratorns, it was not an obligate scavenger, but was an opportunistic carnivore that fed on small vertebrates and carrion when available. Another species, T. woodburnensis, is known from a single specimen recovered from late Pleistocene deposits in what is now Oregon. It was probably larger than T. merriami, with an estimated wingspan of up to 4 metres, and was found alongside the remains of mammoths, ground sloths, and mastodons. Indeed, the rarity of this species comes from the fact that it lived in an environment not conducive to avian fossilization, unlike its relatives further south that became entrapped in tar and well preserved for all eternity. Speaking of Brea, another genus of teratorn has been found there, although it is only known from 2 partial lower leg bones described in 1910. These are smaller and more gracile than those of the contemporary Teratornis, suggesting a more agile animal that inhabited a different ecological niche, although we are currently not sure of what this might be. Despite their success during the Pliocene and Pleistocene, the Teratorns died out during the end Pleistocene extinction event, alongside many other megafaunal species in Eurasia and the Americas. Their demise was almost certainly due to a combination of changing environmental conditions and a reduction in available foodstuffs, which would have heavily impacted Teratorns given their large size, probable long lifespans, and relatively slow rate of reproduction. Even though they were not exclusive scavengers, the loss of megafaunal mammal carcasses would have been a heavy blow for these birds. The youngest known species was T. merriami, which became extinct approximately 10,000 years ago at the Pleistocene-Holocene boundary. The smaller cousins of the teratorns, the cathartid New World vultures and condors, survived due to the former being smaller and requiring lesser caloric demands, while the latter lived in or near coastal regions with access to beached marine mammals and fish. It is sad that the teratorns are gone forever, but now it is the condors that are in trouble, although thankfully conservation efforts have managed to boost their numbers significantly. Thanks for watching, everyone. The next episode will be covering the evolutionary history of the big cat genus Panthera, so until then I'll see you again soon. Cheerio!